I'm Alex Mackel from Board Game Co., and this is News and Week in Review, where we're going to go through a variety of news pieces. As topic of the week, we're going to actually have a semi-topic of the week instead of the Board Game Geek hotness. The schedule of the week, the games I played, all of that and more. Links and timestamps to everything down below. I do think this will be a shorter week than usual. It depends on how long I actually ramble on the topic, but I don't anticipate rambling, although I don't know if I ever really anticipate rambling, except in my unboxings, then I definitely anticipate rambling. Anyways, let's go ahead and start off with a few news pieces. It's really not a lot. It's a very light week, at least it's a light week as far as things I can see. We have a few games announced. First of all, we have Diamonds and Dinosaurs coming out. Nothing specific here, I just think the art looks nice, and so it caught my attention. Good art will do that for you. I mean, I always have to be careful. Nowadays, whenever I say something is good art, I'm always terrified that I haven't looked closely enough and that it's actually AI art, and I'm going to get, torn apart for saying that AI art is good. Whenever I ever say art is good, I mean that I looked at it and I thought it looked nice. I'm not critically analyzing it. I apologize if I find AI art sometimes pleasing. Sometimes, by the way, sometimes I do think AI art looks good. Other times I think it looks like garbage, and it is case by case, and usually I'm scrolling and going through something, and I'm not looking for those hanging little figments, is that what they're called? Whatever the things that are left that show that something is AI generated. But whenever I say good art, I immediately go into panic mode thinking, what if I just said AI art looks good, and people are going to criticize me for that? Which, I don't mind being criticized, but at least I just want to, be clear about my viewpoints. Anyways, Diamonds and Dinosaurs. Good art that may or may not be AI. Not trying to say it is. I have no idea. Speaking of which, we have over here Cats and Dragons from Randy Flynn and from Pika Games, from Fantasia Games' sister company. Randy Flynn's going to be from Cascadia fame. A few other games as well, but Cascadia is the one he's most known for. And then Pika Games from Fantasia. The two combined means I'm very interested in this game. And also, it's got cats and dragons. Those are all great things. I mean, in theory, in the fantasy world that we live in. Those are all great things. Cats and dragons. I don't know anything about this game except Pika Games, and Randy Flynn. Also illustrated by Edu Valles, but I don't know Edu Valls, but I don't know if I know his work offhand. It does look pretty. So Edu, your stuff looks great. I appreciate it. Moving on over there, we have over on GameFound, we have Tanares Expedition Central Sea. I don't know if this is a surprise to any of you, but it was definitely a surprise to me, and I saw Tanares Expeditions, the Central Sea. Uncover an ancient mystery in the Central Sea and battle through one of the most addictive dungeon crawling experiences. So I don't know fully what this is far as, is it Tanares Light? Is it Tanares Expansion? Not totally clear on this one just yet. Kind of briefly skimmed through it. I mean, I don't know fully, but starting November 19th, we're going to have something to it with Tanares Expeditions, and it's going to be only $79, which, if you're comparing it to Tanares All-In, that is only $79. If you're comparing it to Cascadia, it's not only $79, it's twice the price of Cascadia. An excellent game. I also like Tanares, by the way. This is no hate against Tanares. I like them both, but that's going to be Tanares Expedition Central Sea. Then we have over here, we have over on Board Game Wire, we have a Kickstarter board game specialist, Orange Nebula, signs exclusive US distribution deal with GTS. Basically, they're going to be distributing through GTS, which is interesting because in the past, Oneb has at times had a retail presence. They haven't always had consistent retail presence, so I do wonder what this means as far as, well, their retail presence. They are generally a crowdfunding company, but they have had games in retail. This seems to imply they will have more of their games in retail, and time will tell. But if you were trying to get a hold of anything from Oneb and you did not back their crowdfunding campaigns, this might be the opportunity to go ahead and know that they are coming to a retailer near you. GTS, if you don't know, GTS is a distributor. You as it depends who you is, but the average person buying a board game online is not buying from a distributor. Rather, distributors sell to wholesalers. That's not true, I lied, I don't know why I said that. Board game companies often, not always, sell to distributors. Distributors then sell to retailers, and retailers then sell to you. Which is why there's usually multiple people who are trying to make money on every single board game ever produced. When you have this game over here, the people who are making money is the factory that produced this game needs to make money. The people that created this game need to make money. The distributors who collect the game and sell it to retailers need to make money. And then the retailers who sell it to you need to make money. That's 4 different people who need to make money in the process of selling a game. And nowadays, there's actually a 5th tier, which is there's another tier of people who help connect publishers to distributors, because distributors are so overwhelmed with games that they can't, even a distributor can't just take everything. So sometimes you need that extra level. Not always, depends on who you are. If you're like Stonemaier Games, you might only have the 4 levels. But if you're a new publisher, you often need that 5th level of the access point of the people who validate that your game is good and tell the distributor that you can go ahead and stock that game, it'll probably sell. So that's a 5th tier in place. Those are all people trying to make money on every single game you buy, which is why games can add up. There's just a lot of people involved in the conversation. Anyways, that article is over on Board Game Wire. We just went on a tangent. And then lastly, we have Ticket to Ride and IGN. I mentioned this a few weeks ago. Ticket to Ride did a pandemic buying guide, and now they're doing a Ticket to Ride buying guide. In both cases, I don't think the buying guide was that great. It's kind of just a bunch of links to Ticket to Ride products, and last time it was Pandemic products, a short blurb about that product. There's not a lot. I felt this one had to draw more as far as opinions, like, hey, this one might take longer. This one is a great legacy game that we rated over here. But it is nice to see. Like, I still appreciate the exposure, as much as this is just basically helping Asmodee. Nothing wrong with helping Asmodee, it's helping the entire Embracer group. But as much as this is helping Asmodee and giving IGN a bunch of clicks, I do like the continued spread and showcasing of the hobby. I do think they could do a better job of actually making it an actual buying guide, as opposed to a bunch of links with a small blurb. But I do think this was a step up from the Pandemic buying guide, so yay, more exposure of classic board games to the general world, which will help grow the hobby, which is generally a good thing, I guess. I mean, we have so many games being made at any given point that we need more people to play those games. Anyways, that's all we have for news over here. I said already, it is a light week. I meant it when I said it's a light week, although that does not mean the video is going to be that light, because there's still time to see if I ramble for much longer than I plan on in the topic of the week. And we do have a topic of the week this week. Generally, these days I tend to show the Board Game Geek hotness, highlighting a few titles, but we do have a topic of the week, which is specifically maintenance and upkeep in board games. Now, this might deserve its own video, and maybe one day it'll get its own video, but I've just been playing a lot of Primal recently, and I've just been playing a lot of Elder Scrolls recently, and that's made me think about the nature of upkeep and maintenance in board games, and how much it's there, and why, like, sometimes I just kind of want a video game. And it's not even necessarily about the maintenance necessarily. Like, actually, I plan on doing a video of, like, top 10 games that are worth the maintenance or worth the upkeep, and we'll do that at some point, but I think sometimes with board games, and I love Primal, and I love Elder Scrolls, do not get me wrong on any of these things, but they are games that remind me that, one, I am never playing them correctly. I don't think I've played a single round of Elder Scrolls, well, not a single round, I'm sure I've played a single round. When I play Elder Scrolls, and I sit down to a session of Elder Scrolls, I am making mistakes. It's guaranteed. I'm just making mistakes. It's the amount of things that are going on in the game, the amount of things I catch after the fact and realize, oh, well, that person was actually there. Oh, I forgot to use that ability. Oh, this, oh, that. And that's assuming you even know the rules perfectly. Meaning, even if you know the rules perfectly, there's still so much upkeep and maintenance in these games that really takes time from you. And they just take, well, again, there's two issues here. The first issue is that you don't always know the rules to begin with. And they can be hard to know the rules. And unless you're playing them consistently, you can go back and play it 4 months later and know the general framework, but then you come back to the game and you don't remember the specifics. You're like, oh, wait, how is a tiebreaker decided in that case over there? What happens if we're within range? Do enemies count range? Do enemies walk away? How do enemies target? Like, what was the process? Like, do they specifically try to target 2 enemies if they have to? Well, what about, like, any number of different encounters? There's so many things going on. I can play a game 3 weeks ago and then not play it for 3 weeks and come back to it, and I'm like, I remember the high notes, but now I can either make up all the stuff or relearn things. So the first issue you have is the rules issues that get in the way. Now with video games, you don't have this. I'm not advocating for video games over board games, although I do appreciate a good video game, or even a good board game video game like Slay the Spire. But with video games, you don't have that. With video games, if you remember the general arc, the game itself will enforce the rules for you. If you play a video game, you're like, oh yeah, I remember I'm playing that game, and I punch, I kick, and there's some grapple and other things, but like, whatever, I'll just start doing stuff. The game will let me play correctly. I might be missing out some cool moves or cool opportunities, but I can learn those as I go, and I will always be playing correctly. Not necessarily optimally, but at least correctly. So video games have that edge over board games. But then they also have that maintenance and upkeep aspect. The amount of things that you do wrong, like when you play Gloomhaven in person and you play Gloomhaven digital, the amount of things you do wrong for and against you. This is not a conversation about how board games are, your experience is better or worse, and well, it is a conversation about how it's better or worse. It's not a conversation about how it's easier or harder, but it is absolutely a conversation about the nature of just managing all these things that you're going to miss along the way. And this happens in a lot of games, though not necessarily every game. Lots of games are simple and straightforward and to the point, but almost any campaign game is going to have maintenance and upkeep, but not just campaign games as well. Any chip theory game is going to have a degree of maintenance and upkeep as you manage 7,000 different interweaving abilities and how they all work, and then missing things along the way. And those things do take away from the experience to some degree. They don't mean that I'd rather play a video game, because a video game also takes me away from the experience. I appreciate the tactile nature of being at a table playing things. I'd rather play Gloomhaven physically over Gloomhaven digitally, at least as far as if you ignore the setup. If somebody else is setting up the game, for sure. If I'm setting up the game, then it becomes more uncertain for me. But it just has me thinking about the nature of, like, a world in which these things weren't issues. A world in which you hypothetically had, let's call it an AI house guest who's watching over you, setting up your games for you. It's a little robot. It's a little AI robot that's setting up the games for you, and then watching over the game. When you do something wrong, they're like, you missed that thing. Well, it could be super annoying. I wonder, there have to be ways to do this, but there could be a world where a digital physical hybrid kind of works, and maybe that is virtual reality in a perfect world, maybe, but like virtual reality still right now would take away all the experience. I don't want to be wearing a screen on my head all day and then taking away from the people at the table. But is there a hypothetical Neuralink situation, a Neuralink future in which all things are being monitored and taken, well, this again, we're getting to a scary dystopian future, but at least you'd be playing your board games right. It doesn't matter if the government controls everything about you and knows everything about your life and you're really constrained into, whatever dystopian situation the future has for you. At least you'd be playing Too Many Bones correctly without any issues whatsoever and having everything taken care of for you. There's pros to Neo and the Matrix. He's learning martial arts. I'm learning every single board game. You plug it in, you're like, Twilight Imperium. I know it now. Like, that idea, that concept of being jacked into the system and having rules fed to you, like, there's something appealing to that. Doesn't matter if the robots are taking over the world. I'm playing board games, and I'm enjoying myself, and, sometimes you just, ignorance is bliss. Is that the line from The Matrix? This isn't the direction I was planning on going with this conversation. I was planning just talking about the nature of upkeep and rules overhead. I wasn't leaning into the dystopian future when I thought I was going to be talking about this, but that concept is something that I do find appealing. Not the dystopian future part, the part where I can be jacked into the system, know the rules for a game, have the game's rules enforced, even while playing in a physical set where I'm not dealing with the digital whatevers. There's no takeaway for this topic. There isn't. I would say that the other day a fellow content creator asked me, they're talking about Primal, and they messaged me and they're like, I still love Primal, but do you think it's worth it? Like, I think it's worth it, but do you think it's worth it? Like, they were almost looking for, like, that validation of, is this type of game system worth that upkeep? And the answer is situational. There are some games that are absolutely worth the upkeep, and there are some games that are absolutely not. And it very much is case by case. You have to figure these things out for yourself, what your type of gaming style is, and which games will resonate and work their way into that system. I have found many intense, over-the-top games that are absolutely worth it, and I have found many that aren't. And I think the problem is I need to have less of the ones that are worth it so that I can maintain that rules overhead better in my head. I might need to do another purge. I have a hard time purging games nowadays because, like, more and more I'm left with the best games that I can think of. And so maybe I should purge a bunch of unplayed games. Like, Madara is looking at me over there, and, like, as much as Madara is tempting to me, like, I don't know if I need Madara. I should do a campaign game purge. I'm going to do a campaign game purge. That's the next thing happening now. So apparently that's on my list of things to do today. Not necessarily today, but we'll do a campaign game purge soon enough because I think I need to make some hard cuts. Anyways, random topics, random segues over here, and now we're going to go ahead and dive into the week in review. The week in review starting off with the games I played. This past week, as usual, I was just covering a few smatterings of the games I played, but I played Elder Scrolls. I played a lot of Elder Scrolls. I played Elder Scrolls for 8 hours straight, and I will still be diving into it further, but I am trying to have coverage up for you before the late pledge closes on, was September 6th? I'm running out of time, but I just need to finish. Either way, I need to finish a little bit more, but I will be having review-adjacent coverage. It's always hard. I'm going to call it a review, frankly, but it's tricky because by the time I review Elder Scrolls, I will have played 15 to 20 hours of Elder Scrolls, which is a decent amount of Elder Scrolls, but it'll also be like a few smatterings of an experience plus a full single 3-day arc. So the level of amount of content you could play in Elder Scrolls is a ton, and my review will inherently only be touching on a small slice of the game, even though I've given it 15 to 20 hours. So take what you want from that, but either way, I played a lot of Elder Scrolls this week. Like I said already, I had an 8-hour straight day. It's not 8 hours straight, it was like I think it was like a 10-hour day, but then with 2-hour long breaks. So it was 8 hours of Elder Scrolls just straight, and I'll be continuing to dive into it more so that I can finish a 3-day arc before covering it on the channel. But I will have a review coverage for you, and I can say for sure that I definitely love it, but I have thoughts and opinions around it. I have thoughts and opinions and criticisms that may or may not scare you away depending on who you are, but I think the game's incredible. I still have things to criticize about it, but we'll come to that later this week, or probably, I'm hoping for this upcoming week, we'll see. I haven't filmed it yet, so I don't know. Then I also played Kemet. I played Kemet again, which is a game that last time I tabled it was when we had the Rise of Gods expansion, so I need to table that to try it there, but I played Kemet with a few friends who dropped by, a few older friends dropped by. Got a chance to play Kemet. It was good because Kemet is a great game, although Kemet is one of those games that I don't know, like, it's long. It's a long game. Even a short, like, player count, even, like, it can run long, but it is very much worth it. Not 8 hours long, but, like, 3 to 4 hours long easily for a game of Kemet, and sometimes that overstays its welcome a bit, but I still do love it, so, like, I don't know what to do with that, because the experience is amazing. It's just a little longer compared to, like, other games that will give me also epic experiences, but in shorter time frames. But I still do love Kemet. And then there's Confusing Lands. I got several games of Confusing Lands in. Small box game from, oh my gosh, Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name of the company that does Confusing Lands. They do a bunch of small box games. Envyborn Games. Envyborn Games. I played some more Confusing Lands, which is my favorite game from them. I think it's fantastic, and I recommend checking it out if you haven't already. You can play it solo, multiplayer, and it's great both ways. And with that, we're going to go ahead and dive into the weekend review, starting off with this past Saturday, where I reviewed and did a gameplay on Saturday of Stamp Swap, and did a Stamp Swap gameplay followed by a Stamp Swap review. Short version is I think Stamp Swap is fine. I think there are better games in the system, and Stonemaier is full of great games that I love and some games that are not for me. Stamp Swap is not even not for me, it just didn't overly impress me, versus the last several releases have very much done so. On Sunday, I did a video of why value matters to me. This is a video that I did way back when I first started the channel, and I was refilling a new one for, new people and new exposure, and so more people can see it, so I can talk about it when I do my 2-back and not-to-backs, but basically talking about the nature of why I care about board game value, and it's never about trying to make money, and it's never about caring about the dollar amount of a board game. It's about caring about the dollar amount that this board game can turn into another board game, so that I can continue to play as many games as possible. Recycling value within board games, or any hobby for that matter, can elongate your experience of that hobby while operating with less money, but basically trying to be thrifty and experience the board game hobby, but don't go broke while doing so. That's why I care about value, and I go into that in detail in that video. On Monday we had a 2-back and not-to-back. Speaking of why value matters to me, this is like the shortest 2-back and not-to-back I've had in a long time, although it might pick up soon. I feel we're going to be picking up soon based on doing my upcoming September crowdfunding campaigns. I feel it'll be picking up again soon. On Tuesday we had several videos as usual. We had a Life of the Amazonia review. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I like Life of the Amazonia. It has a lot of puzzly nature, a little bit of bag building. I don't know if it's a forever game for me. There's too many games, frankly, at any given point. A 4 out of 5 is a good score, but there's too many games that do what Life of the Amazonia does. That said, I still do enjoy it, and for right now, it's on the shelf. We'll just see, over time, we'll see if that's one that gets pulled off and played, or whether I move to more games in that category that I love, more. But I do like Life of the Amazonia. It's a 4 out of 5. It's a good game. We're at a point now where 4 out of 5s doesn't even mean the game is guaranteed to stay anymore. Then moving on to later on Tuesday, we had a review of Switchback. Switchback is a small box game. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 from Allplay. Really enjoyed it. It's fast, it's simple, it's to the point. It does what Allplay games do. It is accessible and easy to table. Later on Tuesday, we had a review for Mycelia. Mycelia is a intro to deck building game from Ravensburger. It's kind of a charming little game of gathering dewdrops and bringing them back to, bringing them to a portal and then clearing your board of dewdrops. I think the game is charming, it's accessible, it's easy to table, the advanced mode is really what I recommend playing through. Ultimately, to me, it's a 3.5 out of 5. It is a good game. I would keep it, except I already have too many intro to deck building games, so for me, Mycelia is leaving the collection. But it's a good game. It's a 3.5 out of 5, and if you don't have intro to deck building games, I already have several, which is why Mycelia is not sticking around, then I think it is a good intro to deck building game that's a little lightweight, accessible, but easy to dive into. On Wednesday we had a Where Are They Now? This is basically looking at, the past year, a year ago today, and then, a year ago this month, and then 5 years ago this month, taking a look at all the games I played for the first time in August of 2023, and then August of 2019, and then talking about how my tastes have evolved, what's changed, what's stayed, what, temporarily was added to my collection, but then left later, what just left entirely, just going through all those games so you can see how things have changed over time. And then later on Wednesday, we had a deluxe games video going where Meg did a regular deluxification video, where she goes over a variety of things on the channel that are, cool, upgrades, luxifications, inserts, and all of that. On Thursday we had a bunch of videos. We had a 6 small box games review video, which we did Safari Witness, Dandelions, Surf's Up, Isle of Night, Xylotar, and Landmarks. 6 small box games, just going through them. Nothing particularly stood out on them. They were all fine games. I think Isle of Night was likely my favorite, and Landmarks was likely my least favorite, but frankly, none of those games are staying in my collection. I'm pretty sure None of those games are staying in my collection, at least for right. No, none of them are staying in my collection. They're all fine games. They're forgettable. They're not forgettable. Sounds mean. In a world full of great games, none of them stood out enough, is what I'd say. But they could well be games that you play and enjoy, or somebody can play for the first time and enjoy. But given my own taste, the amount of games I played, there were several good games and several okay games, but then none of them stuck around. Later on Thursday, we had our weekly live stream, and then lastly on Thursday, we had a Earth Under Siege Flashpoint unboxing video. An unboxing and rambling of Earth Under Siege Flashpoint, another great game that has maintenance and upkeep. Nothing against the game, it's just the nature of these games, but it is what it is. As far as Friday we had a upcoming crowdfunding games for the month of September. September is a packed month. There's going to be a lot of games to try to spend money on. Anything from Cyberpunk 2077 to the Puerto Rico Deluxe Edition to Raw Reprint and many, many, many more. There's a lot of great games that are definitely, oh my gosh, Council of the Fallen from Deliverance. There's so many great games out there, and September is going to be a packed month for you. Which brings us today. Today we're going to have a few things going up. We are going to have a review for Flowers and a review for Kyoto no Neko. Although I should say there is a chance that one of those gets changed out to some other video. It just depends on how I move things around the schedule. But in theory, there'll be a review for Flowers and a review for Kyoto no Neko going up today. And then as far as next week we'll have a bunch of things. As usual, we'll have a Games Leaving the Collection video for the month of September. We'll have a 15 Essen expansions to check out. Basically expansions for games that will be at Essen that are worth looking at if you like any of the original games. And then of a conversation around previews versus reviews. That should probably go up this week. It might be pushed off, we'll see. But a conversation around previews versus reviews, because I decided to tackle that conversation once again. What is a preview? What is a review? Who wants what? Who's going to work with whatever? Just trying to go through a informational video about those types of content. As far as that's next week, which brings us to the games on the couch. The games on the couch, we have a few things as usual. These are games I hope to be playing today. Some of these I may have talked about in the past week or two, I don't know. But they are all games I have unsuccessfully tabled, which is to say I did not table in the past several weeks. But we have Concilium Urbis over here, which is a game from Perfo Loco Games. I've read the rules. I'm prepped to go. There's a decent chance I'm playing this tonight, but let's not jinx anything. We also have Umbrella, which is a game I have played in the past, just not since getting this copy over here. There's a decent chance I'm playing this tonight, but let's not jinx anything. I played this at Dice Out East, really enjoyed it. I just need to get some more plays in before I review it on the channel, but you do know that my first play was enjoyable. Where it goes from there, we don't know. We have Mass Effect the board game, which is still in shrink, but I hope to table this as soon as I can because I want to table all the games I have. I have too many games. I have too many games to play. But Mass Effect the board game, I want to play this. This is going to be a solo or cooperative game that has a campaign system in the Mass Effect universe, designed by Eric Lang, I believe. Eric Lang and Calvin Wong Seloon. I mean, it looks cool. It's Mass Effect. I don't expect it to be like Mass Effect vibes. Well, maybe vibes. I love Mass Effect. I therefore have no expectations that this board game will be something I love, except for the fact that it's Eric Lang and Modiphius, which does help, but I have to table this and see where it goes. But I'm excited and ready to be let down. And then lastly, we have 4 small box games. I usually only cover 4 games in my Games I Hope to Table, but I do hope to play as many of these as I possibly can. We have a Dice Clash over here for 1 to 2 players. We have Monster Mashup for 1 to 2 players. We have Verdant Arizona for 1 to 2 players. And then we have Heritage Farms, which is weird because Heritage Farms says it's a 2-player game, but then it says a 2-player like in the box count, but it also says in this tight strategy game for 1 to 2 players. So there's a bunch of 1 to 2 player games here from Galen's Games from the upcoming series. I love the little tins. They're little cans of mints over here. Now it's just time to play them and see if I enjoy them. I have played some amazing small box game designs, and I have played some that really let me down. I have no clue which camp these ones will fall in. In any case, and until next time, I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.